Hi there, welcome to Revising and Editing Strategies. This workshop is going to be all about how to help your students with revising and editing questions, especially how they are presented on the STAAR test in Texas. Keep watching if you would like to learn some tips and tricks about how to help your students with revising and editing. Let's get into it. First, let me ask you this question. Are your students struggling with revising and editing questions? I have another video that I'll link below that shows you how to look at your data, specifically to look at category 1, reading, versus category 2, writing, and see where is your strength and where is your weakness in terms of, is it reading or is it writing? And so let's take a quick look at the test. This is third grade, and whether your students are in third grade all the way up to English 2, the test format is exactly the same. So I'm recording this in 2026. The test format is exactly the same. It starts off with reading, which I color-coded green. And then the last question in the reading section is the ECR, and then it gets into revising questions and editing questions. So elementary school has about 16 revising and editing questions, 8 revising and 8 editing. High school, the other extreme, English 2, has about 11 to 12 revising questions and 9 to 10 editing questions. So we are talking about 16 revising and editing points and 20 to 22 in high school. And so if you break down the test, about half the points are coming from reading and half the points are coming from writing. The ECR is going to be a big chunk of that, but this video is going to go into editing and revising, which is at least 30% of the test. Now, let me show you why you should care about revising and editing. One of the reasons, and one of the main reasons. One reason is we're trying to educate kids who can send emails with correct punctuation. We're trying to create adults that can write on social media and not leave out and not be writing with incorrect grammar, correct? So we are trying to create avid readers and writers. That is really the whole point. However, I am going to bring in the STAAR test to this as well. So let's say you have a student, and this is the cut score graphic that comes off of TA's website. Let's say you have a student that got 15 points as their raw score on the STAAR test. This is a picture of fourth grade, but you're going to find something similar for all grades. Let's say they got 15 questions correct, and some of those are going to be 2-point questions, but let's just say they got 15 points total, including the ECR. Okay, that was their raw score, how many points they earned. That would be a does not meet. Okay, in order to get approaches for 2025, they needed 17 points out of 52. Okay, so if they only got 15 points, they did not make it. They would get does not pass or does not meet. Okay, just by adding 16 points, just by adding in those editing and revising questions, you could take a student from does not meet all the way to 31 points, which would be meets grade level standard. So we are talking 2 levels just from getting those revising and editing questions correct. Let's look at another student. Let's say that another student got 26 points. They got a high approaches. If they could get 16 more points, they could be a 42 masters. So that is what we are talking about here. Getting these revising and editing questions could level up your students into the next category or even 2 categories. So the more students revise their own writing and their peers, the better they will get at revising questions. I'm going to make a separate video all about how to help your students with revising and editing as it is connected to their ECRs with writing. This video is going to focus just on helping your students with those multiple choice questions, and even the one where they have to write a sentence, type a sentence actually, in the box. That is what this video is going to focus on. Watch till the end. I'm going to show you a lot of great tips that I bet you did not know. So keep watching. Okay, first thing I want to tell you, and there's a link, there's a QR code on the screen if you want to know where you can get this resource. It comes in one of my popular bundles. This is a very hands-on bundle that I would highly recommend doing an activity like this before you even try to have your students do multiple choice questions. I did this in my fourth grade classroom, and it was a game changer. What this does, this activity only has 5 questions. All you need is 5 pieces of paper. I did 5 different colors and put each one in its own bag. And what this does is this shows students the strategies, the hands-on strategies, before they ever do the multiple choice questions. It helps them to understand why they have to look at the sentence before the transition word as well as the sentence with the transition word. So it has 5 different typical revising questions that they might see on STAAR, and this can be for any grade level, and this is going to really help them to do this with a partner as a buddy station. It helps them understand what to do on these multiple choice questions. So they can grab the baggie, they can do it on the floor, they can write out their sentences on a piece of paper that you can take a grade on. So these students are doing this with a clipboard and they're working on the floor. So this hands-on activity is going to teach so many skills having to do with revising, but also it pulls in a little bit of editing as well. So I highly recommend this activity. The other activity I recommend is having your students make compound and complex sentences. This is going to really help them with avoiding fragments. It's going to help with subject-verb agreement, putting those periods where they belong to separate run-ons. All of this can also help your students with their writing. So this can be found in the same bundle, the Editing and Revising VIP bundle. This includes this hands-on activity and lots of other hands-on activities and tons of stuff to help your kids before you do the multiple choice. I love this activity because it really hits on first grade simple sentences with subject-verb agreement. Then it gets into second grade TEKS, compound subjects. Braden and Gabriel went to the park, and it has compound and complex sentences. So you can kind of decide what you want to put in the bag depending on what you have taught and where you are in the school year. Now, what strategies are going to help your students with multiple choice questions? Now that we've talked about hands-on activities, we are going to get into how to help your students with multiple choice questions. So this is a photo of the strategy card that I had on every table. Every table in my classroom had 4 of these, and the kids would pull these out. It was on orange paper, laminated, and they would pull these out and go through these strategies every time they were doing a revising or editing assignment, okay? And I'm going to give you some tips. First of all, try doing one revising question or one editing question as a daily warm-up, or some people call it a bell ringer. If you can partner your students up, have them partner up to do the warm-up. That requires them to talk to each other to work it out instead of them just sitting there off task, not even working on the question. If you ask them to partner up, they are then having some help and they have to talk it out in order to get the right answer. Now, before you just go and show them the answer, what you want to do is you want to ask students in pairs to identify and justify wrong answers. So you want to ask them, today you're going to just tell me, you're going to pick one answer choice and you're going to tell me why it's wrong with your partner. And then you want to call on each table group and have each group share out, what answer choice did you pick that was wrong and why is it wrong? Another day when you do the warm up, you might say, today you're going to pick what the right answer is and you're going to justify and tell me why is it right. And each group has to tell you, I picked B because, I picked C because, and you wait until you've called on each group before you reveal the actual answer. You want the students to be doing the work. You don't just want to be modeling constantly. Modeling is great, but we're at the point of the year, while I'm filming this, it is February. By February, they should be doing this in partners, and they should be telling you how they got the answer. Then you can see, is my whole class completely off, or do they all know this? And then you're going to fill in the gaps by teaching a quick little mini lesson over how you got the answer and why. And that is how your kids will grow. So I highly recommend doing warm-ups in partners and having the kids share out their answers before you give them the answer. As you are giving them the answer, you are modeling your thinking when you are going over the answer. And you want to teach what the keywords in the question means. That is very important. I'm going to show you another on the next slide what some of these keywords are. And then after you do the warm-ups and you get pretty consistent at doing those, you want to do more practice in small groups at your teacher table during intervention. You can make it a buddy station that is an independent assignment that you take a grade on, but they get to do it with the buddy. So I highly recommend having your students do revising with a buddy, even if you're taking it as a grade, because revising is really hard. And the more they can talk about their answers and why and justify it, the more they will grow and get better at revising. Then eventually you could experiment doing some chunking it and having them do it independently. But I would do this with revising and editing. Start off as a warm-up in groups, then have them do independent assignments, but with a buddy, take a grade, go over it, and also reinforce those skills by doing them in small groups. Okay, these are some of the vocabulary words that could be the keywords in the questions that are based off of the TEKS. So I kind of made this as a little cheat sheet. These are the 3 main revising TEKS for all grade levels. And they change a little bit, but not much as you go all the way up to high school. So 11BI is going to be questions about central idea, which that will change to controlling idea in 6th and 7th grade, and then 8th grade and up, thesis. Okay? It's going to ask them about the closing sentence or the conclusion sentence. It's going to talk about topic sentence and transitions. All of that is 11BI. 11BII is going to ask questions about which sentence should follow and support. Which sentence, where should you add this detail? Or what details should be added? It might ask students to remove a sentence. It might use vocabulary like unnecessary, remove, or delete. And then 11C is the one where most of those revising questions are going to fall. And this is going to be about word choice, changing a word to a better, more precise word. It's going to be about more descriptive phrases, replacing a word that repeats. This is where you're going to see that SCR question for revising, where they have to combine 2 sentences into one or get rid of repetition. And in high school, they use the word redundancy. In elementary and most of middle school, they will use the word repetition. Okay, the words could be scrambled, they could be in a weird order, they could sound awkward. All of that goes under 11C. And so there are resources. What I would highly recommend is using TEKS-aligned revising and editing questions and having students focus on highlighting those keywords and teaching them what some of these keywords mean. For example, add the following sentence to the third paragraph. Where should he add it? That's a typical revising question. In the box provided, combine the ideas in a clear and effective way. Number 5, he's included a sentence that doesn't belong. Which sentence should be removed from this paragraph? Number 6, what is the most effective transition to add to the beginning of sentence 22? So when we're doing these, we want to not just look at sentence 22, we want to also go back and look at sentence 21, because the transition is going to have to make sense in between those two sentences. So here are my tips. Teach the vocabulary that is in the questions that I just showed you. Words like key idea, central idea, topic sentence, opening, detail, extraneous, support, follow. Okay? Teaching your students what a topic sentence is. It's basically the main idea of the paragraph, or what the paragraph is mostly about. And we talked about how if you're teaching a transition word question, they have to know what the sentence before is about and what the transitions mean. Teaching them what the transitions mean. Having students practice compound and complex sentences is huge. So here's something you could do to make it fun. You could put a revising question on your smartboard, on your projector. You could have each table group or each team or each partner group justify why each answer choice is wrong or why it's right, and they have to tell you why on their whiteboards or in their notebooks. Then you can have groups share out before you reveal the answer and discuss it. Then give points for students that are correctly justifying. You could also give points for correct answers and make it a game. Highly recommend using incentives to reward students that are showing a skill you want to see. If they are working on task, you might give them a reward. If they are getting the right answer, you might give them one Skittle. Okay, so if you are finding that your kids are struggling, it might be because you're doing a lot of modeling and you're doing a lot of independent practice, but you're missing that piece in the middle. And ask yourself, are you having your kids work in pairs before you give them the answer? Are you having them do group activities? That is the scaffolding that goes in the middle between teacher modeling and independent practice. Okay, here's an example of how you could use those strategies to show your students how to tackle these revising and editing questions. So step 1 is they're going to highlight the keywords in the questions. So they could highlight best, revise, and the number 2. The next step is they are going to highlight that sentence in the passage, find sentence 2, and read it out loud. Next, and they would do this with a partner, next they are going to justify why at least 2 answers are no ways, 2 answers are definitely not the correct answer, and why. So if you look at A, without expecting to volunteer or anything in return when they give their time and help others, that doesn't make any sense. It sounds really awkward. If you look at C, people give their time when they volunteer without expecting anything in return when they help others. I noticed that the word when repeats. Okay, and so by doing these strategies and taking out 2 questions, this is going to make it easier to find out which one makes the most sense and which one sounds right. And the last step is choose the best answer that sounds right. When I read this out loud, when people volunteer, they give their time and help others without expecting anything in return. That makes the most sense. Here's an example from 6th grade, and I have these all the way up from 3rd grade all the way up to English 2. So same thing, you would follow those strategies until you figure out which one makes the most sense. Okay, now we're going to talk about the 2 types of revising SCRs. The first one is, in the box provided, combine the ideas in sentences 6 and 7 to create one clear and effective sentence. So this one is combining. It also could be this one. It could be get rid of repetition, and this is what it would look like. Sentence 6 repeats information. In the space provided, rewrite sentence 6 in a clear and effective way. All of these are worth 1 point. So I have several of these in my task cards and in the workbooks if you are looking for practice. Let's take a look at what this looked like on STAAR. We're going to look at 4th grade 2025. So in 4th grade 2025, they decided to ask a question on combining. Okay, now 57% of the state got this correct, so not too bad. But they had to combine sentence 33 and sentence 34. So sentence 33, about 20 minutes later, I finished the race. My brother was by my side. So they have to combine those. And you might be thinking, oh yeah, you just put comma and, but guess what? There's so many possibilities, you have no idea. So I'm going to show you from the scoring guide. Look at all the possibilities that got a point. So one of them used the conjunction but and did not put a comma. One of them used the preposition with, and one of them used the conjunction while, and one of them used the conjunction when. All of these got the point. And so I want you to notice, and this is a secret, don't tell the kids this, but I want you to notice the conventions do not count in the 1 point when you are scoring these, because it is not being assessed on it is being assessed on revising, not editing. Okay, so if you look at where I highlighted yellow, this is from TA. It says the missing comma before the conjunction in a compound sentence and the capitalization error and the missing misspelling are editing errors that do not affect the score of this revising task. So even when they're combining sentences, what they are looking for is that they have the correct conjunction. There's many possibilities, and that they don't change the meaning, and that it makes sense. Here are examples that got zeros. And if you look at these closely, let's look at this one at the top. It did use the word and the one at the bottom used the word and, but what they did here is they just kept it as 2 sentences. And the task was to combine them. So that's why it did not get the point. This one, they changed it from I to they. So it changed from first person to third person. If they change the meaning, they don't get the point. Okay, so that's why I'm showing you these insights that will hopefully help you to help your students. Okay, here's an example. This was from 2024, 4th grade. They asked about repetition. Now, the state did a lot worse on this question, 33%. So this was a hot spot. Listen to the sentence. Their presence led to more museums and to more galleries and to more festivals. Can you hear what is repeating? Okay. So what the task is they have to get rid of that repetition, clean it up, and just write one nice sentence. So here's an example that got the point. both of these three all got the point. Their presence led to more museums, galleries, and even festivals. Notice they took out the repeated phrase, which was to more. However, it says the errors, lack of capitalization and punctuation, do not affect the score. So as long as they get rid of the repetition, it does not affect the score on this point. Okay, now conventions are part of the score for the ECR if they don't get a 0. So we still want to not really tell them this because we do want to encourage students to obviously use capitalization, commas, and periods. But just know that they will get the point if they complete the task that is being asked. All right, and then over on the right, these are examples of zeros. And here are some more examples from the scoring guide from various grades where it tells you that it is not scored on conventions. Here are some 6th and 8th grade examples, and I want you to notice if you do teach grades 6th grade and up, that is when the semicolon is introduced, and they can put a semicolon between two sentences to combine them. That is an acceptable answer as well. And the other new question type is called drop-down or inline choice. And so all of these are things that your students need to practice along with the multiple choice. Okay, so having them do that daily warm-up, having them modeling the question, but not, modeling the keywords, but then having them do the warm-up in pairs, and then letting them justify why it's not the answer, and then modeling the correct answer after they've done the work. Small group practice, that is going to be the secret to success. And you might be thinking, what resources are available for TEKS-aligned revising and editing questions? And are they cross-curricular? Well, I've got you covered. We have 3rd grade to English 2, digital revising and editing, task cards. They come as task cards that you can print 2 to a page, or Google Slides, you can assign them electronically. And these are all cross-curricular. They all go with social studies passages that go with that grade level's TEKS. It also has some science thrown in, so these are going to be different for each grade level. And I have these from 3rd grade all the way to English 2. If you click on this QR code, it will take you to my store where you can click on your grade level and then look for revising and editing bundles. I also have workbooks, which this is a great way to have your students practice the strategy in the workbooks. And these are the same as the digital slides, but in a workbook format. So if you scan this QR code or you go to my link right here, which I will put in the description, we have workbooks from 3rd grade all the way to 7th grade. 7 weeks of revising warm-ups and practice, and 7 weeks of editing warm-ups and practice with all the new STAAR question types. Very much aligned to STAAR. Now, if you're looking for something that would be great for intervention or tutoring, I do have a brand new 2nd grade revising and editing workbook that is all grammar practice. And it is going to focus on one skill at a time. So I took all of the editing TEKS and all of the revising TEKS for 2nd grade, and I broke those into little mini skills. So each skill is going to have a learn page, kind of like the notes for the teacher to teach and for the students to keep as a reference page. It's going to have sentence practice and a short passage with editing questions that only focus on that one skill, like subject-verb agreement. So the only thing the 2nd grade book doesn't have is compound and complex sentences, because that doesn't get introduced until compound sentences is 3rd grade, and then that gets introduced later. So if you're looking to close gaps and focus on just the basic grammar skills like subject-verb agreement, irregular verbs, stuff like that, it is going to be a great resource for intervention and tutoring. And so these are the books I have at the moment. I have Revising and Editing, 2nd to 7th grade, and I have Reading Comprehension, 3rd to 5th grade. So if you email me, especially if you are an administrator, curriculum director, superintendent, if you email me at carlin@carlinlaborio.com, I can give you a discounted quote for multiple copies with a purchase order directly through me. I have a lot of bonuses going on at the moment with free digital slides, free shipping. So please, if you are wanting to get multiple copies, it's going to be a lot cheaper to email me. If you're just one teacher trying to get the book, then you just want to go on Amazon. And I have a link right here that'll take you directly to the Amazon links. But you can get the books all on Amazon, shipped to your house or to your school. And so let me know in the comments, what are your takeaways on this free revising and editing workshop? Tell me something you learned that you didn't know before, and I really hope, truly hope this video helps you and your students. And comment below something that you learned, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks so much. Bye.